Welcome to Conversations from the Barn at Everwood Farmstead. These are casual chats with visiting artists. Creaky barn, bugs, and all. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Conversations from the Barn. This is Chris Everett. I'm here with Bill Underwood. And we're excited to talk this evening with Matthew Ricketts and Sam Kalda, who have been here this whole week. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hi. We are so happy you're here and have really enjoyed music coming out of the barn, which is always a treat.
I walked into the barn and Matthew was playing and I said, God, sometimes I just have to remind myself, where am I? Because I walk in and there's this beautiful piano music as I'm strolling across the lawn, and it's just very lucky.
Yeah, we are
Great way to end a Friday.
How are you both doing? How was your week?
It was very relaxing. And it was also a little challenging at times to figure out how I was going to use my time, and also being combating that pressure to feel like I have to fill it up with stuff and projects.
When did that pressure start to release? Can you remember the day?
I don't think so. Probably, let's say
early
Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay.
Let's say Wednesday.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Matthew, how about you?
I came with a very clear project and a very clear deadline, which was yesterday, September 1st. So I had my work cut out for me. So I started that the first day I got here, and really had to keep working at this every day.
You had something to submit by September 1?
Yeah.
What was it?
So it's a piece of mine called Enclosed Position from 2014 that I've actually never heard this piece live. It's always been performed when I'm out of town. And an ensemble in New York called Da Capo Chamber Players wrote me a couple months ago and said, we'd like to perform this piece of yours from 2014. And I have mixed feelings about the piece, having never heard it, and I really struggled with writing it for some reason at the time. It was very difficult to produce this piece, and then they wanted to play it, and I said, well, I'd like to dust it off a little bit, actually, and have another look. Is that the chipmunk?
It is.
Okay, you said it. I have something to say. Yeah.
Makes an appearance.
And so I set myself the task. I said, okay, when I get to Wisconsin, I'm going to take this piece. It's a chamber piece for 6 musicians, and it's about 9 minutes long. So it's not a huge piece of music, but it was covered in a lot of dust and crap. And I was never happy with it. And I said, if they're going to perform it, and my name's going to be attached to it, and I don't have performances that often in New York City, so I wanted to make it better. So I had this revision task of kind of rewriting this earlier piece of mine to make it hopefully better. And I finished yesterday. So
Congratulations.
thank you.
By now it should be obvious you are a composer.
Yes.
And you hail from?
I hail, New York City locally, but where I've lived for 12 years now, but I'm from British Columbia originally, from Victoria on Vancouver Island.
Wow. One beautiful place to the next. Mm-hmm. Okay. And Sam, you had some projects in mind. Did you stay true to them, or did you pivot?
I did. So I came here with the intention of starting to work on a children's picture book concept and writing it. And I did, and I actually completed a rough draft much quicker than I thought I would have. So I was trying to figure out okay, I sent it off to my agent, and I had to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of the 3.5 days or whatever. And so I spent a lot of time just, sketching and painting outside. It's not something I really do as much as I should. And that's been great. It's a nice way to take a break from painting digitally and just kind of working with watercolor and how temperamental that can be, and just paint trees, the barn, different things in the area. It's been lovely.
The two of you just met this week. We in putting together, trying to pair people with complementary art forms and different places. Sam, you're from here locally in the Twin Cities. How has that been? Meeting someone new, sharing a space, but also having kind of two different kinds of art forms.
It's a match.
Oh, good.
No, it's been really lovely. I mean, Sam also very generously agreed to drive me here because I flew into Minneapolis and even picked me up from the airport, and I'd never met him before, so a very generous thing to do to a stranger. And yeah, I mean, I've very much enjoyed, cooking and hanging out together and chatting and having a beer on the deck. Yeah, I'm not sure if our work is in crosstalk in any obvious way. Probably not. I mean, we've sort of been working in separate parts of the, separate parts of the farm. But I don't know.
Yeah, we've talked about it. I think another thing is I moved to the Twin Cities from New York about 4 years ago, and I'd been in Brooklyn for like about 14 years. So it's kind of just talking also about his neighborhood and kind of reminiscing too about that period as well.
That's a nice connection.
Yeah, well, and even further, my husband is from North Dakota and Sam's from South Dakota, and a lot of my husband's family also lives in Minneapolis, and Sam lives in St. Paul. So there's kind of all these ways that the Dakotas, the Twin Cities, and New York City sort of overlap.
Right.
Said one person ever. That was you. And so, Sam, we talked a little bit about what Matthew does. Obviously, you were an illustrator, graphic designer.
Yeah. Yep. So my background, I studied oil painting, and that's kind of where I come from. And I was doing sculpture for a while. I worked on a documentary after college. And went back to school for illustration in like, I don't know, some years after undergrad. And just because I missed storytelling and I missed drawing, I didn't really know a lot about illustration. And since then, I've really, worked doing children's books, books for adults, editorials for magazines and newspapers, and then I also show paintings, occasionally. So I try to have like a varied practice, but I'm a full-time freelance illustrator. So and I've written for I have one book published, but I've never written and illustrated a book for children, which is sort of a new thing for me, and very intimidating. So this was like the perfect opportunity to work through some ideas and just have dedicated time to try to cram in a story in under 500 words in a way that makes sense visually and that sounds nice when read aloud. So,
have you both been on an artist retreat before?
I did a fellowship when I was a junior in college, but never like a traditional residency.
Yeah, I've done several.
What is the value of taking this kind of time?
Well, for me, the having access to a piano and a beautiful piano at that, this piano that's behind us in the barn it's such a gorgeous instrument. It really has a very unique sound and touch. I mean, every piano is like meeting a new person. You go on a first date and you're sort of getting to know each other, and at a certain point, you want to take it a step further. I've gone all the way
Other
with
people
this
have to
instrument.
use that piano.
But coming to know this piano has been wonderful. Just like its sound and performing on it and playing on it. But yeah, that's my apartment. Predictably in New York City is very, very small, and I do have access to other people's pianos. I've sort of accumulated a lot of sort of friends and supporters that have pianos that let me use them, but to have sort of access to like all day long, basically to a beautiful instrument, and also just like a wide open space and a big desk, I find that that kind of expansiveness is very good for my sort of mood and just productivity. So that's allowed me to really get this piece revised and in good shape, and I've been doing some other work too while I've been here. So yeah, the whole setup's been very good for my work.
Good.
Yeah, so that's sort of what draws me to residencies, and then also it is nice to get to know another artist and yeah, I think our work and obviously our mediums are very different, but at the same time we're both sort of like freelancers that also have like a little bit of a sort of a toe in academia, and we both have this kind of New York thing. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities, but sort of interesting differences to explore as well.
How about for you, Sam?
What does the time mean?
What is the value of taking time for a retreat?
I think it's been very surprising how I was looking forward to it, and then as it drew closer, I was very nervous because of the time. I mean, it's a week away. I'm traveling later on in the month, and the project I initially applied to work on, I kind of like gave up on, or it's like under a pile of other stuff, and I had this book idea that came to me like about a week ago, and I think arriving and finding just this like lovely room with a big desk and the time to start working, I was really able to dive right in and lay out some of the phrases I had been working on and the kind of sections of the book, and lay them out on the ground and on a big wonderful desk without my cats distracting me or a tea kettle or UPS coming, and it's been lovely.
Tell us about your orientation to nature, and you were just speaking earlier, Matthew, about the wind vane, and that kind of gorgeous amplified sound in there, and that may end up in a orchestral piece at some point. But what is your orientation to nature, and how is that fed into your experience or your art?
Yeah, I'm something of a nature boy. Yeah, I do like nature. I grew up in British Columbia, which is very, I think even non-outdoorsy people end up just being outdoors all the time because there's the mountains and you're always like a step away from the ocean. And so it was, I don't even consider my upbringing that outdoorsy, but it was like we were camping every weekend and we were always outside. And I grew up, it wasn't as large as this, but I did grow up on something that was a kind of farm. There were, next door to us, there were horses. On our farm, we had chickens. We had about 25 chickens and a rooster. And there were geese at one point, and all sorts of small woodland creatures. So I grew up with that at a certain point in my life, and I love that world. I love the smells and the sounds, and it's something I don't get a lot of in Brooklyn, as you could imagine. Though I do live close to Fort Greene Park, and I go to the park whenever I can. I go running in the park. I work in the park. There's these desks that I go work in all the time. So so I do find myself, while not being overtly sporty, still enjoy having a relationship with the natural world and its qualia. So that's also been a wonderful part of being here and taking in this incredible vista and multi-sensorial experience.
It's pretty sweet playing piano in a barn outdoors, right?
Yeah, it is. I sent a picture of the barn to my mother, and she said, "Do you sleep in there too?" She also asked me if I put on the beekeeping outfit because I took a picture of that down in the basement, and I said, "I don't know. It's not that kind of residency."
Although we could go into the bees later if you'd like to experience it.
One of us has already been into the bees.
You have been in the bees.
You put the suit on and went in?
No,
Maybe
I
you should have.
Yeah, maybe. No, I had an incident near the bees and lost my glasses. It was
A full-on Velma episode.
Yeah,
my
very
glasses, my glasses.
a little bit of a panic near the bees, but things are okay.
Yeah. I think this segues perfectly into your relationship with the
Yeah,
actors.
yeah, for sure. I'm a city mouse, I think, traditionally. But, you know, I think like a lot of people during the pandemic, I started gardening and, you know, made a garden in the building in, you know, the back of my house in St. Paul. And that's been, I think it's shifted my relationship with nature in a way where, you know, planting pollinator plants and like, you know, native perennials and native cultivars in the backyard and just seeing it really transform from being kind of a really sad rundown space to an area where we have, you know, lots of different bird life and, you know, tons of bees and bumblebees and things I can't identify and I will rush to look up, you know, and so I think what's been wonderful about being here is the restored prairies I find really gorgeous and having kind of gained knowledge through gardening somewhat of flowers and some of the native wildflowers. I've enjoyed walking around and just trying to like identify things and I'm also interested in like prairie restoration, so this has been, you know, very cool to see it, you know, in practice. And it's a like I have a wonderful appreciation for the aesthetics of nature. It doesn't always work for me to be in it, you know?
I'm glad I talked to you about the bear early on in your visit.
Yeah,
That probably
it's doing
went
a lot of clapping outside.
that probably went over really well now in hindsight. Wow. I love it. The glass. You have to tell us the story about what happened with your glasses.
So I was doing the meditation, the walk-in meditation, and I get lost in a walk-in closet, like anywhere, and like I have a terrible sense of direction. The woods are sort of scary for me. So like I was like prepared for the walk, and then I was having a hard time finding the symbol, even though I feel like I saw it on an earlier walk, and I was kind of did a couple, you know, went back and forth, and then I did like a circle around the bees, and I think I was like loitering a little bit too much around there.
Did you get stung?
And I got stung by the ear, and I like jerked, and then my glasses flew off into the
prairie grasses.
Into the prairie grasses.
No.
And they're tortoise shell. So I was just like, like, what am I gonna do? And I ended up.
And then a bear showed up.
But so I ran out, and I like had to prepare myself to go back in and like find my glasses. But I'm like, this is gonna be really funny after the fact. But like right now, I'm struggling a little bit. So I went back and I found it, found the glasses, I found the path, and it actually it made for, I think, a very memorable experience. You know, it was a journey.
Yes.
And wherever you go, there you are. And this is, you know, it was typical Sam in nature experience, I think.
You were saying your family was going to enjoy this story.
Oh yeah, this is like, yeah, I can imagine this will go over very well with them.
I feel like maybe there's a children's book in that one.
Yeah.
Has your garden had an impact on what you draw, your illustrations?
I think a little bit. I think it's affected some of the artwork I enjoy looking at and am more receptive to. I think there was a lot of paintings that I might have found boring 5 or 10 years ago that that are much quieter, let's say, that I've grown to appreciate. I include a lot more flowers in them, or when I do, they're specific plants, let's say, and not sort of like a general swath of color.
Is there any... We hear from several folks that come that having the space, having the big table, extra time, different rituals have been a helpful reminder of kind of what adds up to, productive creative time. Is there anything that you want to bring back home to your studio, to your work, that maybe you remembered or discovered having, some expansive time?
I think having no Wi-Fi in the barn is nice. And my phone in general has pretty bad reception out here, which has also been nice. So I can't claim to have been totally unplugged from the internet this past week, but it's definitely, I found myself less distracted by things online and my phone, and just leaving it in the house and coming to work in the barn. Yeah, I've also been, I guess this is kind of farmy, I've been going to bed earlier and getting up earlier. Yeah, I think, and I just leave my blinds open, I just wake up with the sun, which there's a lot of sun in that room in the morning. So I've also enjoyed that. I always want to be getting up earlier, so
The natural kind of cycle of the sun helps out. How about for you?
I would say I was not on my phone nearly as much as I normally am. It's kind of a boring, like, kind of piggyback answer. I think also, I would just go out during the, not work day, but the day, in the studio, and go for short walks, which is something I don't do as much as I should when I'm, at home working. And I often have this kind of anxiety when starting, painting or drawing, is this search for like a subject matter or content for it. And while I've been out here making, not overthinking it and just going to like paint or draw the apple tree, the view from the porch, and by doing that, there's a kind of discovery within the drawing itself or the piece itself that I think, has a way of informing work later. And I think I could take some of that back home, and I think make more time for just the practice of everyday drawing. And even if it's a sort of mundane, a vase of flowers or a pile of mail or something like that, it's the kind of puzzle of drawing and figuring it out that I think leads to kind of interesting places. So the phone and, staying off my phone and drawing every day is hopefully something I'd like to bring home.
We had a watercolor workshop 2 weekends ago, and one of the women who was here, and she paints quite a bit. She doesn't traditionally do watercolor, but she says she paints her clothes every day. Her blouse, her her underpants. It's just everything, and it's just, that's her little study practice every day, which I thought was really sweet.
Yeah.
First time the word underpants has been mentioned in this podcast, but got that in. Nice work, Chris Everett.
Hashtag underpants.
There you go.
We have a tradition in wrapping up our conversations with the same question. And so we'll ask it of the two of you, which is, how have you experienced beauty today?
Finding my glasses.
That was pretty good.
I will come up with a better answer.
If you wouldn't have said that, I would have.
Okay.
I also went on the sort of meditation walk, and despite my earlier claims of being somewhat outdoorsy, I am also very scared of some things in nature, like bears or cougars. I don't think you have cougars around here, but there are things. There are wolves, right? Or there are some sort of dogs.
Right. Yeah.
So and there was a lot of wind today, which was moving. There was sound everywhere while I was walking through the woods, and it was causing things to fall on the ground, and I was just very sort of electrified hearing, and a little bit on edge. But that I guess I would call that the sublime, which is where beauty is interacting with the terrifying in some interesting way. So I had kind of a sublime experience of beauty today on my meditative walk, where I was slightly scared of being stalked by a bear while trying to have like a transcendental meditative experience.
Really regretting that bear comment on Monday.
No, it's better to know. I mean,
Knowledge is power.
Again,
there is a
12
bear.
years, never seen it.
But
never
you've seen the
it.
cub, right? The cub is.
I have.
Okay, well, where the cub is, there's going to be a mama.
Like I said, best case scenario, worst case scenario.
I think after my bee attack experience, I was back on the path, kind of regrouping, and I've enjoyed seeing the deer in the area so much. I see deer like fairly regularly, but there were just a few of them hanging out, eating in the woods, or hanging out just off the path. And while I was, regrouping, it's lovely to stare out and see them kind of checking me out, eating, and then ignoring me. And it was a nice little bit of calm in what was a slightly traumatic experience.
They probably took the whole scene in and were like, there he is.
Yeah, there's that.
Hey,
there's the
Sally,
guy.
come over here and watch this guy.
He's bound to have a repeat performance.
Look at just wandering up to the bees.
Thank you both for taking the time for this chat. We appreciate it.
And thank you, too, for saying yes to this experience. And Sam, in particular, thank you for your generosity of helping Matthew find his way here.
Yeah.
It was really sweet.
Oh, well, thank you. This has been lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad. Please, both of you, stay in touch. We're very invested and interested in knowing how your artwork meets the world, and we'll be following along. Hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Conversations from the Barn at Everwood Farmstead. Our theme music is provided by John Mark Nelson. Wishing you all good health.